All right, let's dig into this. What if those headlines about crime in a major city like Washington, D.C. are just, well, skimming the surface? What if there's a secret, hidden battle happening right beneath our feet that you're not seeing? Today, we're taking a deep dive into an extraordinary set of claims. We've been handed a fascinating and, frankly, quite astonishing source, a video transcript from the YouTube channel Redacted, featuring Dr. Michael Salla, and makes some truly remarkable allegations about Washington, D.C. Our mission is to immerse ourselves in this material, extract the most compelling nuggets, and really explore a narrative that suggests far more than just typical urban issues. We're here to understand the intricate web of connections presented by the source and to grasp the sheer scope of these allegations.
Yeah, what stands out initially is how this source connects seemingly disparate events into a single overarching narrative. It's quite something. For those of you who track these kinds of intricate theories, it invites us to consider what happens when information, often dismissed as conspiracy, is presented with specific evidence and, historical context to build a grander theory. The core claim, as presented by this source, is that the federalization of Washington, D.C. Metro Police by President Trump wasn't just about reducing street crime. It allegedly involves a far more ambitious agenda, cleaning out underground satanic networks.
Wow, okay. Straight into the deep end there.
Pretty much. And we'll be exploring why the source claims the military is involved, the supposed occult significance woven into D.C.'s very design, and a historical cover-up that allegedly illustrates these deep-seated issues.
So let's start with what feels like the more observable claim presented in the video. The source begins by highlighting a public narrative. The mayor of D.C. supposedly admitted that crime has plummeted and all but disappeared thanks to the federalization of the National Guard and the ongoing presence of the U.S. military.
Right. That's the positive public outcome, the success story that was reported.
But the source immediately takes us much, much deeper.
This is where the narrative truly pivots. It shows how a publicly reported outcome, like plummeting crime, can be reinterpreted by the source as a strategic cover. It's a common trope in these kinds of stories, The visible reality is merely a facade for a hidden, far more significant operation.
Okay.
The source alleges this improved public safety isn't just about typical law enforcement. It's a smokescreen for a much larger covert operation to clean out underground satanic networks that have supposedly compromised public officials.
So just to be clear, the source presents this as a deliberately dual narrative. The public gets a simple explanation for improved safety, while the true, far more sinister reason remains covert. A classic setup for a hidden battle narrative.
Exactly.
And the video doesn't just stop at underground networks. It paints a very specific picture of their scale and reach, claiming they exist underneath Washington, D.C. and extend as far as 10 miles underground.
10 miles, indeed. The alleged physical depth adds this vivid, almost cinematic scale to the problem, suggesting something far beyond conventional understanding. This also establishes a perceived physical domain for these operations, adding another layer to the narrative's construction. It makes it feel more tangible, maybe.
Definitely. And it gets even more specific about who's supposedly involved.
Where?
These networks, according to the source, comprise public officials from all branches of government, including the judiciary. That's huge.
It is, and the video goes as far as to claim that members of the House of Representatives reportedly called these out and then what? Lost their jobs for telling the truth about what's actually happening beneath D.C.
Wow.
And these alleged networks purportedly compromise public officials by using these underground SRRA rituals, that's satanic ritual abuse, which the source claims impacts federal institutions and constitutes treason.
Treason. That's a heavy word.
Very. And according to the video, former President Trump and his inner circle are said to be fully aware of this entire situation.
So the implication is a level of corruption and infiltration that's almost total across the board.
That's the picture painted, yes.
Right.
The alleged infiltration of not just one, but all branches of government, including the judiciary. The assertion that public officials are being compromised through SRRA rituals for leverage completely redefines the nature of corruption within this narrative. It establishes a level of systemic compromise that, well, if true, would render traditional legal and governmental processes utterly ineffective.
Which naturally raises the question, if the system is that broken, how do you fix it?
Exactly. It raises an important question about the perceived depth of this alleged compromise, and consequently, the radical solutions the source then proposes.
Which leads us right into the military's role, doesn't it?
It does.
Because if the very institutions meant to uphold justice are allegedly compromised, as the source insists, then who exactly is left to fight this hidden war? The video offers an extraordinary answer, asserting that you cannot rely on the Satanists that are running Washington, D.C. to prosecute their own.
Right. So this is where the narrative introduces its unconventional solution. The source claims that military lawyers, specifically JAG officers, Judge Advocate General officers, are reportedly handling civilian crimes in Washington, D.C.
Military lawyers handling civilian crimes, how does that even work, according to them?
Well, the stated reason, as the source explains it, is that normal judicial courts can't function for these types of cases. Why? Because many judges are allegedly compromised themselves or under investigation.
So the civilian system is bypassed entirely.
That's the claim. And this is where the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ, enters the picture. The source highlights a stark contrast in potential punishments. Civilian courts for crimes like sedition or treason might offer, say, a maximum of 20 years imprisonment, whereas the UCMJ allows for the death sentence for such convictions. Big difference.
A huge difference. But isn't the UCMJ usually just for military personnel?
Typically, yes, and the source acknowledges that nuance. It says the UCMJ generally does not apply to civilians unless martial law has been declared or when normal judicial courts can't function. And the source insists that D.C. is currently in that latter situation for these specific types of crimes, implying a kind of judicial breakdown.
So secret military courts dealing with treason and satanic crimes under the guise of handling petty crime.
That's the narrative. These military courts, it's claimed, are secretly used and convened under some kind of special tribunal, and the underlying point is repeatedly reinforced. The public prosecution of petty crime is just a cover for these deeper satanic crimes.
It's quite a sweeping set of claims, especially given the alleged secrecy. The video implies these JAG officers are coming into D.C. to handle this incredible story, operating outside the very system the source says is run by Satanists.
Right. It really emphasizes the extraordinary nature of the alleged situation, and it positions the military as the only uncompromised entity capable of acting.
Which brings up another point they made.
Yeah.
About vetting, right?
Yeah.
Why the military specifically?
Yes. Well, the source is very clear on that. It claims the military is the only branch where officials are thoroughly screened and vetted and have no real ties to these satanic networks. It positions them as the untainted enforcers in a compromised system.
Almost implies they're the last line of defense, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It paints a picture of the military as this uncorrupted institution, a critical element in validating such a covert operation. It's a crucial part of making the whole scenario seem plausible within its own logic. Precisely. This narrative thread is crucial for understanding the proposed solution. By suggesting the military is the only uncompromised entity, the source presents a mechanism for justice outside the allegedly corrupted civilian system. It's a very specific bypass designed to address a problem deemed too pervasive for conventional means. This also highlights the idea that the true fight is occurring in the shadows, largely unbeknownst to the general public.
Okay, so this narrative goes even deeper than just secret operations and military intervention. The source suggests these satanic networks aren't just operating in D.C., but are woven into its very fabric, literally, in the city's design and its connection to the Masonic order. So what does this all mean in a broader, more symbolic sense, according to the source?
Well, this is where it gets into some very specific symbolism. A particularly striking claim is that of an inverted pentagram in the design of Washington, D.C., specifically described as a broken pentagram.
A broken inverted pentagram. What's the supposed significance of that?
According to the source, this geometric pattern is given profound, alleged occult significance. It's described as an invitation for the devil or Satan to come in. The source points out its central axis on 16th Street, Washington, D.C., running directly from the White House to the House of the Temple, which is identified as a significant center for Scottish Rite Freemasonry in the United States.
So a direct line from the seat of power to a major Masonic center, marked by this supposedly satanic symbol.
That's the connection the source draws. This intertwining of urban planning with alleged occult symbolism is a powerful element of the narrative. It suggests the problem isn't just behavioral, it's foundational, even geographical.
And the source takes a fascinating turn here, delving into Freemasonry itself, an organization widely known for its philanthropy and its 33-degree system. But the source alleges it harbors a much darker hidden truth, particularly at its highest levels.
Yes, the source details an alleged secret initiation that supposedly takes place at the 33rd degree level. Here, a secret initiation test is presented, which involves desecrating a copy of the Bible, for instance, by spitting on it. That's the specific example given.
Desecrating the Bible.
That's the claim. According to these claims, passing this test by desecrating the Bible then allows entry into higher orders, specifically the 34th, 35th, and so forth degrees. In these alleged higher orders, participants are purportedly told about things like secret extraterrestrial origins of the bloodline ruling families, the history of giants, and anti-gravity-free energy technologies. Really out there stuff.
Wow. And what if they refuse to desecrate the Bible?
Then, according to the source, they are told they've passed the test by upholding their principles, and they remain a 33-degree Freemason for life. They believe they are at the highest level, but are supposedly kept unaware of these demonic higher orders and their secret knowledge.
So it's presented as an ideological litmus test, desecrate the sacred text, to access a higher truth. That is, ironically, described as demonic. That's a profound subversion of traditional symbols within the narrative.
It is indeed a test of allegiance framed in the most extreme terms.
The source then shifts, right?
Yeah.
It tries to connect these present-day claims to a specific historical alleged event, the Franklin cover-up, documented by journalist John DeCamp. The idea seems to be illustrating the long-standing nature of these claims of Satanism and compromise in D.C. What are the key elements of that historical alleged incident, according to the source?
Right, the Franklin cover-up. The source describes it as an incident where John DeCamp, a journalist and state senator for Nebraska, allegedly uncovered extensive evidence back in the late 1980s. The claims involved young boys from Boytown, Nebraska being taken to D.C. These boys were purportedly used in honeypot operations, essentially entrapment or blackmail schemes against sitting members of Congress or high-level public officials. The interactions were said to be taped to manipulate or blackmail these officials into doing what these Satanists wanted.
That's disturbing enough, but it gets worse, doesn't it?
It does. The boys, according to the source, were also allegedly trained through SRRA practices, satanic ritual abuse. This involved, the source claims, a ceremony where one boy was cannibalized, meaning killed and eaten, and the others were commanded to eat the heart and so forth and different body parts as a way to condition them to break them down.
That is incredibly dark, just horrific claims.
Absolutely horrific. And a critical detail added by the source is that no one really kind of pursued what he uncovered, leaving it as an unresolved historical stain, a festering wound, if you will.
And the source doesn't just leave it in the past. It brings this into a modern context, drawing a parallel. It says Washington, D.C. has a history of these things, referencing recent claims of HHS whistleblowers about the Biden administration facilitating the massive sex trafficking of children at the Department of Homeland Security, but then contrasts it with action purportedly taken by the FBI under the Trump administration and Kash Patel, who were supposedly rounding them up by the hundreds. This implies a continuous struggle, with different administrations handling it differently.
Yes, that's a powerful rhetorical move within the narrative. The source uses these examples, the historical Franklin case, and the contrasting modern claims to suggest a consistent pattern. A pattern of alleged systemic compromise and a perceived lack of official action, with the specific exception highlighted for the Trump administration's purported efforts against sex trafficking. It frames the current situation not as an isolated incident, but as a continuation of a long-standing generational struggle against these alleged networks. It reinforces the idea that these are deeply entrenched issues.
So, after laying out this incredible scope of alleged compromise, historical precedent, and covert operations, let's look towards the future, as presented by the source. What's the end game of this massive operation, according to the video? And will the public ever actually see these alleged Satanists perp-walked, as the source asks?
Good question. The source introduces a key player in the perceived future, the White Hats. These are described rather vaguely as Earth militaries and forces that are involved in these kinds of operations.
Okay, the good guys in this scenario.
Essentially, yes. And what's particularly striking is the claim that these white hats are supposedly being helped by positive extraterrestrials.
Wait, extraterrestrials?
Because, according to the source, the Satanists themselves directly worship these negative extraterrestrials, referred to specifically as Draco-reptilians.
So this hidden battle isn't just earthly, it's cosmic.
Apparently so. According to this narrative, it elevates the entire struggle to a whole other level. D.C. is presented as the initial target for this cleanup, the first domino. But there's a clear plan, they say, to move to other major cities.
And the pattern will be the same?
The source suggests yes. National Guard, judge, advocate generals coming in to help the district attorney to deal with the so-called petty crime. But really, behind the scenes, they're dealing with these Satanists. It's a vision of a sweeping yet quiet purge.
And on the question of public revelation, will we ever know if this actually happened, according to them?
That's where it gets murky. The source suggests the public really hasn't been prepared for this, referencing films like Eyes Wide Shut as something that kind of helps prepare people for the truth. It implies a careful, perhaps gradual unveiling, if at all.
So maybe not a big public reveal.
Possibly not. The source speculates it may well be that the White Hats just kind of keep this all done in secret and will move ahead with their agenda, which, the source believes, is to reveal the truth about many subjects that have been suppressed for a long time. The source posits that this major cleanup operation will, once it reaches its end, lead to life in the United States change forever. And it will become much easier for the forces of good to bring about policies that help all Americans prosper and experience abundance. It's a vision of a radically transformed future emerging from this secret battle.
A utopian outcome born from a hidden war. And there's a final urgent thought from the source in their chat room directed squarely at the listener, isn't there?
Yes, a warning. Protect your children because these sick people are everywhere. A chilling final note.
Wow. It's truly remarkable how this source constructs such an intricate narrative, weaving together elements of crime, governance, occult symbolism, history, even extraterrestrials. From alleged underground tunnels stretching miles deep to secret military tribunals, the very design of D.C., historical cover-ups involving horrific acts. It paints a truly sweeping picture of a hidden struggle for the soul of the nation. It presents a world far more complex and, frankly, conspiratorial than most conventional reporting would ever suggest.
Absolutely. This narrative really compels you to consider how deeply intertwined some believe these forces are and the sheer scale of the alleged operation required to address them. The story emphasizes the idea that a profound, unseen struggle is taking place, with potentially world-altering consequences that, as the source suggests, may or may not be publicly disclosed. It leaves you with the profound question, doesn't it? How much of our perceived reality might simply be a front for something far more elaborate and clandestine going on beneath the surface?
Whether these claims resonate with you, challenge your perceptions, or seem utterly unbelievable, our goal here is always to present the depth and breadth of the information provided in our sources. To unpack the narrative as it's presented, we hope this deep dive leaves you with plenty to ponder about the narratives that shape our understanding of the world and the hidden corners they sometimes explore. Thank you for joining us.